So these guys were trying a format in which everyone could answer. There's no critic.
Okay.
So one person actually copied from a web page, and it was one of those web pages where when you copy any text, the URL also cuts along with it. So it was there in the answer, and they were like, "We're disqualifying this team." And
One other funny story: someone went ahead, some bright kindred spirit went ahead and edited. This was a page on haggis, okay, on some Scottish club's website. I don't know how they got access to it, but someone went ahead and edited this and introduced this fake funder of a statue of Robert the Bruce and haggis annually, some tradition around haggis being thrown from the statue of Robert the Bruce. Now, this is a fake funder. But now some other bright soul chose to ask a question on this, and someone got busted because they went to this website and pasted this funder onto their answer.
I'm totally going to do that. That was my, how do you say it? The way out of this. I'm going to lay Google baits all over.
So I am digressing from our set structure, but I have a small question here.
I thought we were only digressing, Abhinav.
Yeah, that is okay. But not with the questions, with the answers here. But yeah, so I forgot. Yeah, so what do you feel about quizzes which have very minimal text, as in probably about 200 or even 300 characters, but the quizmaster is all about talking, basically giving hints out verbally, or basically the question out verbally.
Abhinav, you can take names, it's fine.
You can take names.
Multiple people are there actually.
Okay.
I'm not talking about one specific one, but so they feel that people will not read, and it's more about what I speak. So do you see what are your feelings about something like that? Because I certainly feel that that defeats the purpose of having a PowerPoint presentation, for example, or you can keep coming back. So sometimes, so there's a certain different kind of trigger when you are reading something, right? So even, for example, if it's a repeat that you have seen in a buzzer quiz, it helps. Because, so you have seen a few keywords and you press in less than half a second, right? That happens.
Right.
So all of that, which is why I asked this question. How do you feel?
I mean, I see where you're coming from, especially which was the last Discord quiz you participated in, Abhinav?
1.5 months back, maybe. Kanika's.
So if this kind of a thing were to happen in a Discord quiz, it would not happen. Because why? Because the quizmasters wouldn't want to take a chance with verbal clues that might or might not be heard by every team audibly. So there is something about Discord as a platform that might almost systemically prevent this from happening. That you have minimal text on screen, but you're saying things aram se on your mic. But in a live quiz, exactly. In a live quiz, however, if it's a cozy enough setting or close enough a bunch of people, say 24 people in 2 rows in front of you, and you have the mic with you, between these two circumstances, you can understand why they might do that in a live quizzing environment. Because someone feels this is also a function of how well they have curated the quiz. Because if you have done justice to the set while setting it, then you would not leave things to chance, such as remembering that I have to add this verbal clue. That's too much pressure, unnecessary pressure.
Yeah.
So most quizzers, most quizmasters would like to avoid that sort of on-the-spot adding clues, because it messes with other things such as, was the bounce over or not? Did I say something? One team had already pounced and then I'm saying something extra. So all of those other considerations begin to mess with the equation. So short answer to the question, I'm not in favor of doing that in any quiz, but you can understand why it often passes in a live quiz, but wouldn't pass in the kind of online quizzes we've been doing, where the platform requires everyone to be at the same audibility sort of starting point. You know, you can't be partial at all, or take a chance with being partial.
Yeah. So Arjuna, on what are the things that you would like to change in quiz?
I think the pandemic has been a huge setback for the quizzing community. It's an incredible setback. The weekends really were these platforms that allowed you to let off your competitive steam, meet friends, not to mention quiz competitively, without having to second guess whether someone is using unfair means. If you're participating in even one online quiz, you know how that bogs you down as a participant. Because half of the time you're trying to follow what's happening here. The other half, you're amazed at, wait, everyone seems to know this. I mean, is there something wrong? But we know better. We know better than thinking that we are losers for not being able to answer anything here. And I know you had put up a status on Facebook as well, Abhinav. This sign of reconciliation is almost that I give up. Bitch, please, I'm done with online quizzing. I would much rather get my negatives and stick to my honor and integrity. So that is very commendable. Now, if everyone were to approach quizzing from the point of view of it's this platform where I'm getting to share and learn new things, you take the prize money away from online quizzes. I think prize money in online quizzes is such an absolute disaster. It's a wreck. It's a train wreck. Right? It's like you're saying, this is a message you're giving out, and I've thought long and hard about this. The message you're giving out is, please come register for the quiz. The prize money might well be $100. In some cases, the pool of the prize money has been $100, right? Some cases, $300. So you spend $60 registering, or say $80 registering. You're competing for 220 rupees or 40 rupees. But you are still competing and trying to fend off any sort of suspicion on your caliber as a live quizzer. You have this pressure working that is telling you, if you do not win this, people will instantly start thinking lesser of you. At the same time, you're also chasing the $40, which is highly unfortunate. I mean, it's not just the spate of online quizzes that's alarming. I mean, did you have open quizzes happening on weekdays before? It's now de rigueur. It's the norm now in this new abnormal. You have open quizzes happening on weekdays. And we have almost sworn off any sort of online competitive quizzing. The last one we participated in was this garden quiz that Anush had done for a smallish circle. But yeah, this general apathy that's coming, that's almost settling in to the regular open quizzes approach to quizzing, it's disturbing. I mean, I've spoken to multiple quizzers about this, and the common message that I tend to get from them is, let's wait for when live quizzing will start. So there's a sense of reconciliation. It doesn't help I'm sure you guys are aware of what went down last week and so on. Yeah, from all the sort of tweet going up, tweet coming down, and everything else happening around it. But I mean, the message that at least I'm left with is a terrible aftertaste. The lengths to which an established quizzer, senior quizzer at that, and I'm not taking names here, but we all know who this person is by now, right? The lengths to which this quizzer has gone to kind of game the system by taking recourse to means that are obviously unfair. We were till a minute ago still talking about Googling at online quizzes. Now we are talking of identity theft. We are talking of multiple accounts being created just so they have access to the questions beforehand. I mean, whatever apathy or lack of apathy I had left, I'm a convert. I don't want to quiz in anything that's to do with anything to do with online quizzing and double guessing my competitors. I would much rather trust these competitors when I can see them. There's physical co-presence, and I would trust the results happily. But unfortunately, I can't do that in an online setup where I know there are people who have explicitly used unfair means, right? So that kind of violation of this almost implicit code of conduct, right? There is no code of conduct that we have been given as a quizzer. You often see that slide with QM is a god, don't use unfair means. That's the extent of how much we try to streamline, because we like to treat quizzing as These are sensible people who are competing against each other. So they have a shared sense of sort of what is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is amoral, and so on, right? We often take this for granted. Now, but we have reached a point where the future of quizzing hangs on this or lies on this knife edge, really, where if all of us collectively are not able to hold on to our sense of what is ethical, what is moral, what should be acceptable, what is not acceptable at this point in time, we are doing an immense disservice to all the good work that all these societies across, all these clubs across the country have put in, trying to make this community, trying to bring this community together. And I mean, I don't want to make any bones about it, but this was terribly disappointing behavior because a bad example has been set. And the established quizzer we are talking about is someone that a lot of quizzers, including myself, looked up to. You know, from the sheer sort of prolific nature of winning. And now after this incident, what do you even trust? So that is highly unfortunate. I mean, that's the worst thing that could have happened in spite of the pandemic happening to quizzing, in my opinion, right? So I wouldn't be very hopeful about the future of quizzing unless consciously people, clubs, societies across the country understand and take a stand on what a code of conduct ought to be. You know, it is time to not leave it to chance and assume that you can expect the best from people. Because having done that over the last 5 months, all of us have been left with a terribly bitter aftertaste. So that's how precarious the future of quizzing is. You know, the sooner we are able to engage in live quizzes, the sooner all of us are able to travel down to these cities and compete freely and openly with trust in the room, the better it is. The sooner we stop sacrificing ethics or morals at the altar of a few quick bucks, and they are literally paltry. So it's not even an incentive, if you ask me. Yeah. Or illusory egos. I mean, imagine you are cultivating an ego on the basis of what you know are terribly unfair means. I mean, how deluded do you have to be? That's my take on the precarious future of Indian quizzing. There's a lot of potential. Unless we are, however, able to collectivize slightly, I don't mean it in the socialist realism sort of collectivism, but just taking a stand on what passes muster and what doesn't, and what is adequate punishment and what isn't. You know, the sooner we're able to take a stand on that, the sooner we have a chance of redeeming the little that is left of the honor and integrity in quizzing.
But Ajay, do you think there would be any repercussions or punishment? I really doubt there would be.
No, but people need to talk about it. People need to be more vocal about it. They can't adopt double standards, for example. There have been people who have been called out for doing lesser or damaging the community and what it stands for in relatively insignificant ways in the past.
Yeah.
So why should certain established quizzers be treated any differently? If they are, by virtue of them being established quizzers, doing far more damage to the aspirational aspect of quizzing. You know, if you're a young quizzer, you look up, it's like that old saying, you know, when match fixers got busted, I forget if this was baseball or NFL, but Abhinav can correct me, he's a sports enthusiast among the three. But say it ain't no, or say it ain't so. I don't even remember the exact quote. The last word was either S or N, right? Now, this was a plea from a young fanboy to a sporting giant who had disappointed the fanboy with unfair means at what they consider the sport that they want to make a career out of, a vocation out of, a hobby out of, or a passion out of. That's the worst kind of damage one can ever do to the future of quizzing anywhere on planet Earth, but all the more so in India, where we're trying to systematize, streamline things so that we are in a place where if there were to be a quizzing Olympiad, the Indian team should stand a chance. and not turn up and make a trip out of that. So we are yet to get to the point where we would stand an absolutely clear chance against competing Belgian, UK, US, French teams, Australian teams. And this happens. It kind of sets the wheels back on all of the good work it's impossible to put an estimate on how much time the damage will do and it will take to kind of fight back. But a big damage has been done. So we need to address it. If it's not addressed, this is a start, talking about it, sensitizing people to perhaps, take a stand and take a stance and take a stand on this and not, shy away from a confrontation is one of the ways to do it. So if you feel strongly about quizzing, this is your time to speak up. And I mean, it's an appeal to everyone to please understand the gravitas of what has happened, and let there be a punishment or let there be an acknowledgement of this violation in as blunt a manner or as forthright a manner as possible. Let it not be, subsumed in lobbying. Let it not be subsumed in the clout that quizzers and quiz clubs share in the circuit. Let this be understood in as clear, as loud and clear, unfair terms as it has gone down. Let it not be seen through a filter, please. That's my appeal to, if you want to do something about the future of quizzing in this country, and like the two of you, I feel very strongly about what quizzing can achieve. I try to employ it and implement it every day in my classes, and I borrow significantly. I get a lot of joy from quizzing, and I have my own role models in quizzing. And you don't want to see these role models fall in this awful a manner. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on what I'd like to change in quizzing. If there were to be live quizzing, I can't really think of too much to change apart from the streamlining bit. If you are thinking of India as a superpower, knowledge superpower, then there's a lot of streamlining potentially that can be done without it being.
But that could be counterproductive, don't you think?
It can be counterproductive where you mistake the trees for the woods.
No, I mean, like, you could lose out on all these subcultures that you have. That Calcutta has a subculture. If it's all homogenous to compete at an international stage, you could lose all out.
Right. So that's a good point. I'm not suggesting that we lose the essence of a KQF, right? Or that we lose the essence of an Oktoberfest or a Q Fiesta or an Askans. Let the festivities remain. Let each city bring on and showcase what makes it a unique quizzing city. Fine, I'm fine with that. But if you are trying to devise ways whereby you can identify who the premier quizzers are in the country, if you want to establish a legitimate ranking that takes into account more parameters than the current format does. Unfortunately, the current format doesn't do too much justice to a holistic approach as a quizzer.
What is the current format? I had no idea about it.
I mean, if you look at any of the question booklets for any of the written solo quizzes,
okay, in that sense,
very few have a visual section accompanying it. Right? Mark Quizzer, for instance, doesn't have any visuals. So there are a lot of changes one can bring about in how we want to assess with some amount of consistency the best quizzers in this country, right? And if you're able to do that while you can still retain some aspect of the unique city's import through the razzmatazz around it, or even in the kinds of topics that get asked, right? Then I think that's a fair middle ground to aspire to. Some amount of standardizing, some amount of uniqueness. But if you make it entirely one of the two, then it becomes an entire country of British pub quizzes, which is undesirable.
Right.
Or it becomes some societies or some city clubs having stronger foothold on masses participating in these events, and therefore them stating that according to us, these are the top 20 quizzers, that tends to be accepted as the sort of word of God or the final authority. But I don't think we're at the stage where we can do that without trading off uniqueness, without trading off variance.
Right.
Currently, we are not there.
All right. I guess.
Something that I noted down while you were on your monologue, if I may call it so. So I think in a quiz, the highest score that I've seen is 290 on 300, which is in the online. So it was, and they were a team which nobody had heard of. So that is the most extreme example that I've had. And the only answer that they didn't get was a proper noun that the quizmaster wanted, which I'm sure they couldn't get to Googling. So it was something about the Shah of Iran. I don't remember who it was, which precise Shah. Another thing is the QFI. So QFI have started their QF1 online thing, which is again very interesting because there is no prize money, of course, and nobody knows your results. So as you said, there is no incentivizing the illusionary, as you said, what?
Illusory egos.
Yeah, that part also is not there. So I found that very interesting, and it's very nice quiz for the first time, I think, and they'll have it the next Sunday, if I'm not wrong. And
right. Even before, I mean, we used to love the QF1 quizzes that used to come our way on the subscription.
Yeah.
I never found a way to take it competitively in Delhi, but I took it at my own time, on my own time, chilling on a Sunday, and I'm maybe taking a quiz. There's nothing competitive about it, and it's a kind of thing that, if anything, can help redeem this lost sheen from quizzing. But the moment you make it a league, the moment you make it competitive, that part of the brain, that side of the human ego will take front stage, which you don't want.
Yeah, and the open weekday thing that you were talking about, open quizzes in weekdays. I think the only people who force some college quizzes to become open quizzes are people who have dropped for a year, for example, and they are not in affiliation to any college. But then it would become like under 25, which is where it kind of becomes a mini open quiz. Couple of extra people come in. Because I have had 2 drop years, which is why
I love how when we became open quizzes, we turned it into under 25. That's
that's a conspiracy that was hashed under my nose. Shresh was staying with me with my flat. We were flatmates then in the Anand colony, and he was inching towards 25 himself. So he started this entire discourse, and we joke about it still. And he gathered this mass support for getting under 25 quizzes off the block. And now we are campaigning for under 35, of course. It's a massive campaign that we've launched across the country to get quizzes to be under 35.
We're under 37, then under 38.
Yeah.
It'll go on.
Symbiosis, you remember, no? February, Symbiosis did an under 30 quiz. Symbiosis Noida.
I didn't know.
Couple of those.
All right. With that, we come to the end of another episode. This time, we had a lot of fun. I don't think we've discussed these many theories around quizzing and what quizzing is all about with any of our guests. So this was really unique experience. So thank you, Arjo, for all of this. And
Pleasure.
It was lovely talking to you.
It was lovely talking to like-minded people as well. I mean, what's the point of talking to someone who is a traditionalist?
Yeah. I think we can just call this episode "Calling Out Traditionalists."
We should have named all of our episodes.
Rather not calling out traditionalists, we're cutting them some slack as well somewhere by saying that, let to each one's own. I mean, if one wants to be stuck in time, it's their choice. I wouldn't judge them for choosing to not immerse in a subculture.
Yeah.